Should you invest in the stock market? You know, I think a better alternative to investing in the stock market is to create your own business so that you can basically create your own fucking stock in the stock market. You know, I think it's crazy how people they are looking for some sort of like magic pill for success. Like, oh, I want to retire when I'm 50. So I'm going to invest in the stock market and shit like that. Is like, well, let me tell you how to retire when you're 50 with or without the stock market. Don't buy the most expensive house you can afford. Okay? Just because you can afford it doesn't mean that's the house that you should buy. My dad, or one of my dads, my stepdad, my father, he was told that, oh, you can afford a $400,000 house. All this money you're making. And he's like, I'm just going to go with the little $150,000 house. And the real estate agent, keep in mind, real estate agents get paid commission. So it's their job to literally sell you a more expensive house. You know, sorry guys, I just got my vaccines the other day. The cold is flushing through my system right now. Should you invest in the stock market? Not really. That's the short answer, and I'll tell you why. Is because investing in stocks when you don't have a whole lot of money to invest is pretty much pointless. Is like you can potentially in like a 10-year period be making like stocks are better to keep your money up with the cost of living, rather than a savings account. You should maybe invest in the stock market. But overall, investing in the stock market is pretty pointless. Yeah, everyone's trying to look for a shortcut, like a quick way to or an easy way out of the system of poverty, the poverty system, of the middle class poverty system, where like the corporations are already trying to suck your bank account of everything that you fucking have with monthly subscriptions, and there's like wars going on right now to get the money out of your guy's pocket. Literal wars that you can't see. You got people waking up at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning, going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, trying to get a little piece of the economy. And it all falls down to you, the consumer. Should you invest in the stock market? Well, probably, but not as a way to make money, but as a way to secure your money, yeah. You know, Savings accounts are only really there, and checking and savings accounts should only really be there to save up money to make investments. You know, that's what they're really there for. It's not to let money pile up and pile up and pile up. It's just to keep what you've got. You know, because as let's say in the year 2015, $1,000 was like a decent chunk of money. That was like a rent payment in 2015. You know, you know, now our rent payment is like 1,200. The same rent payment now is like 1,200. 10 years later, 12, 13, 1,400. I remember you used to be able to get an apartment in the suburbs for like $750 a month back in 2011. You know, you can get an apartment for like, you know, $750 a month. Now that same apartment is like 12, 1,400. So it's called inflation, but really it's a cost of living adjustment compared to the amount of money coming in and out of the country, basically. So pretty much, you know, and so and there's a couple other factors involved in inflation, but basically inflation mainly comes down to the amount of money coming in and out of the country. So pretty much, you know, should you invest in the stock market? I think, well, your best alternative to investing in the stock market is to build a company, build a business, and create your own stock. You know, work on your business relentlessly and get your stock price up to like $1 per share. And, you know, how many shares are there in a company? Like 50 million, I think, or something like that. 50 million, maybe, something like that. I don't know. Is I own businesses, so my stock price right now, I'm not on the stock market yet, but if I was on the stock market, my stock price would be probably about $4 or $5, but probably about $4 or $5. So, yeah, because I own a $450 million company. And, but yeah, should you invest in the stock market? I wouldn't call it much of an investment. It's more of a way to secure the money that you already have, not to grow money. You know, it could make a difference of maybe like a couple years of like you get to retire when you're like 67 instead of 70. You know, it could make like that sort of difference. 3 measly years at the end of your life. So, yeah, it's a great way to keep what you've got, but it's not a great way to really make money unless you're wealthy. That's what I'm going to end this video on, is if you're wealthy, you should invest in the stock market. And I'll tell you why. Because let's say you come up on, 10 million bucks. Or 100. It's pretty much the most that any of us could realistically hope for. And that's coming from the owner of a $450 million company. I never thought I would be worth $450 million. I never thought I'd see the fucking day, And that's just brutal honesty, is you're probably not going to be like me, And so my plan is to basically sell my company and just invest into the stock market. That's what I'm honestly going to do. I'm just going to sell my company and invest into the stock market, or I could build my business and not do that. And because 500 million bucks invested in the S&P 500 is $10,000 a day from stocks. And that's been my goal all this time. I look up and one day, by fucking crazy happenstance, I say like, oh, sure would be nice if I could make like, maybe 10K a day from the stock market and then retire on that, because the stock market is the most passive income you're ever going to make. So the S&P 500 is the best stock to invest in, is the best, what do they call it? Is the best like index fund to invest in, because it goes up with the cost of living. It's based on the top 500 companies in the world, or the top 500 companies in the stock market anyways. Like, I'm one of the top companies in the world, but I'm not on the stock market yet. So and it pays a dividend of 1.4%. So that's pretty good. Whenever you're looking to invest in stocks, do not just look at the dividend, and do not just look at the APY. I think that's what it's called, the APY, annual percentage yield. No, because dividend, do not just look at the interest, the rising price of the stock, and do not just look at the dividend. That's why I invest in the S&P 500, because it has both. 500 million in the S&P 500 is $10,000 a day in dividends, on average anyways. And then it also goes up with the cost of living. So that's pretty awesome, right? So yeah, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. Me being the vision keeper of my company, it's my job, it's sort of my job to be vigilant and diligent in upholding the vision of my company. So maybe I'll get on the stock market soon, you know, and probably sell my company and turn it into a publicly owned business. And I'll remain the CEO, and they pay me a salary. I think that'd be pretty cool, you know. Yeah, so in the future for me, my goal is to get 500 million cash in my pocket. Crazy thing about life is when you're relentless and you're willing to do anything it takes to get to your end result, you know, you find a lot of times that you get there more often than not, actually. But you have to have the balls to take the risks. You have to have the balls to take the risks. You know what I'm saying? If you want it that bad, you'll take the risks. There's always the chance of massive failure, and there's always the chance of massive success. I'm just the one that became a massive success.